In here of 1097, we see a bunch of events of some interest. I haven't gotten to the bribes yet. I should, because I know there's a little bit of play going on there, but it turns out it probably isn't that interesting. Okay, we had a plague in Acre, which reduced Al-Afdal's forces. We had another desertion. The Germans lost a couple more leaders. They paid one off with their meager funds, but they lost their biggest guy, Henry of Esch. And they're down to, I think, like 9 strength points down here. They still think they can get Jerusalem now. And if they can, that's all they'll get. You know, they'll not take any chances beyond that. But that might be something that the rest of the players could actually settle on, accepting Godfrey in Eustace in Jerusalem. Mainly because he will not have any other points. He'll end up well below the Jerusalem point threshold. Had some extra troops show up in Aleppo for the Mosles, and they'll be able to use them as they wish. Alright, I guess we'll move things. And some intriguing stuff happens in the movement phase. First of all, you've got people like, we've got Eustace trying to slip into Jerusalem. Now that is valuable enough, not just because of the alliance. That agreement doesn't actually matter much. I forgot about something. You can't just attack your own faith. You both have to agree to have the fight. I'm not sure if you can siege your own. Yeah. So, the only way it's going to really work is if you can get a Muslim to support you, as I see it. The rules are fuzzy on it again. So, interfaith combat, God, I hate this. I want to get back to the story here, but the intrafaith combat requires both players to wish to have combat. But interfaith alliances seem to allow that without discussion about the intrafaith combat. I don't know. Because otherwise, obviously, you wouldn't want to fight the part of the alliance that is of your faith. It just doesn't seem... So, it seems to me that if you can hook on to an appropriate Muslim, you can kind of operate with them, but only if you're actually operating with their army. So it's going to be pretty tough to actually force your way into an opposition of, say, a Eustace in Jerusalem. Now, if the Normans get in there, they will be so ahead at that point that everyone will more or less want to knock them down. So that might allow for a Christian-Muslim army to combine. Anyway, okay, Eustace heading down that way. We have the Egyptians being tricky here, slipping out of Acre by sea, fine. Robert's going to take it. Oh, let me make sure they took any treasury with them that they're supposed to. Is this getting hard? Yeah, they've got it with them. Okay. And they slipped back to Caesarea. The forces in Caesarea slipped over to Haifa. But here's where things start getting sticky. Tancred decides to make his own stab for Jerusalem, sailing out of Famagusta and landing at Haifa. Caesarea would have been another option, but Haifa looked like the easy place to land. So there's going to be a naval battle, a land battle, and a possible, who knows what, at Haifa. I think it could actually result in the destruction of Tancred's forces if the naval battle is lost and he has to retreat from the land battle, which could be very, very bad. Raymond abandoned Hama, also attempting to make his own race for Jerusalem. He's got a long walk, though. So, but here's the thing. Dukak sent Ridwan down there. Basically, he gets some forces in to Jerusalem, not so much to protect it, as you can't keep just one city. Damascus isn't holding all your troops. So maybe abandon Jerusalem then and move down to Hebron or Ramlah or whatever. But you got to split your forces, dude. You can't have, just one stack that's too big for Damascus. You're going to start eating your way out of this city. Over here you see the Moslems tried to withdraw. Now these guys tried to get to Harank, but this Thranduil or Thatul or whatever, he had orders to go there. Unfortunately, they aren't his own orders. This guy gave him orders, the Southern Raymond, but the Sicilians bribed him. He still follows his orders. He wanders in there. Thoris joined the Emir of Tarsus, and we have a battle with this Kug vassal, whoever he is. Oh, and Ocean finally got bribed away by the Sicilians, so he'll be some additional force. I've decided I was mistaken here. So the naval battle happened. The Genoese were forced to retreat, but the Egyptians took the loss. However, the Egyptians are able to land. They were trying to land their troops in the city, whereas Tancred was trying to walk to the city. So I'm allowing the Egyptians in there before, so there's no ground battle that was required. That means Tancred's in position up here to actually start marching his way down. Of course, he's behind Eustace in that. Then let's see. Over here, I didn't explain why this happened. So these guys were disrupted, so they moved into the same hex as this Thatul. Well, they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to voluntarily enter a hex that someone else, that an opponent is going to be in. So they had to fall back. Over here, this was a quick fight, and it gave the Emir of Tarsus a point of guile for being a victorious warrior or something, for beating up on a couple of strength points. Got some disrupted Armenians falling back there. Not a lot they're going to do with one strength point, but they could steal. Samosata fell to a plague this turn, so they could steal something like that. In fact, with their retreat 2, they can get right in there. Haha! Instead of where they went. Random events here in the 2nd June turn gave us some interesting situations. For one thing, biggie, Bohemond got an assassination pick. He killed Kerboga. Not hard to kill for the Christians. He only needs a 3 or higher, and bang, he's gone. That was well worth trying. That takes out a major potential danger for the Sicilians. It also takes some pressure off the southern Normans, but the Sicilians were very worried about the Moslems coming at them. That's the only real threat that they have. Any Christian leader that they went after, first of all, they're not allowed to, but had they been allowed to, would have had a higher guile if they're important. Killing Kerboga was far and away the best thing they could do in their circumstances. Okay, so we've got, we also had a huge, the Caliph, not the Sultan, I don't remember, demanded a tithe from the Fatimids again, 25% of their money. That could fall on any Muslim player. They ended up having to pay 112 Byzants. That drained the Cairo treasury, which may have been a mistake, actually, because I've got all my money up here in the battlefield area, but whatever. It's useful there. If I need to rebuild, I'm not going to have forces anyway, necessarily. But I probably should have split the cost between the two areas. There was also a plague in Cairo, and now there's no troops there, which means it's not going to generate any more income. Now that makes it much worse. Of course, Cairo is not a big moneymaker like, say, Homs, with its caravan coming in. The 3 caravan cities are the ones that get kind of these big boosts in money. So I've got to be careful and protect the treasury here. We got an interesting race situation. Ridwan, Eustace, potentially Tancred, and of course the Fatimids could get involved. All could reach Jerusalem at this point. We'll see what happens. Well, I can tell you what's going to happen because I've written the orders. Ridwan's not going. But both Tancred and Eustace are. Tancred was able to find that he can just make it there. He's got a higher guile. Chances are he'll get Jerusalem if they take it. That might make Eustace less willing to actually help him take it. But Tancred can take it alone. The only risk he has is Ridwan's force, which happens to be quite small. It's not clear to me how much knowledge there should be of the other person's pieces. I've been playing with open knowledge. So, hey, there's only 4 there. We can cope with that. Had there been, if it had been hidden unknown troop strengths, it would be really, really tough for Tancred to agree to go in there. And of course, unknown troop strengths create a problem for the Christians because they have their off-map boxes. Fine, you can say they're kind of hidden, but there's nothing too hidden about a stack. And when you've only got a few of the Crusaders in one space, you know that there's not going to be a huge force there. When you've only got one, it probably means they're over here. All right. Well, we'll see what happens out of all this. I don't think there's going to be a lot of fighting because the Egyptians are playing their little game of trying to avoid fighting the Normans down here. And our circumstances at the end of this turn. You got Tancred and Eustace here, but they've got a problem. They weren't counting on what happened here with Ridwan moving up to Tiberias. I believe that... Oh, no. Okay, I can still trace a line of communication up this way, because that's only a level 1 city, so it doesn't project into here. If that was a level 2 city, I'd be cut off from line of communication, basically, I think. Although... I can't slip through here past Syria, or past Damascus. So yeah, this is my route getting to supply lines. So I'm okay. I thought I had gotten myself completely cut off there. Duke of Normandy's moved up to Haifa. What's weird is the Egyptians stayed here, which prevents me from going further. I was kind of hoping to get to Caesarea this turn, but no, I'm stuck in Haifa because they didn't leave because Tancred didn't have a lot of forces. But what they did do was they shipped another boat in there, both for the ability to slip out more easily, but also in order to protect themselves against any possible Crusader navies that would get in their way. They've basically, the Egyptian navy's gotten a little beaten up here from that earlier fight. Let's see what else. The Moslems managed to grab Hama, essentially our good friend, this is now Crusader. Our good friend Raymond's move south means that he didn't, you know, he made it clear that Hama was open, so he's left it. Now Homs is not so clearly open. We have this Iosard here. He's got a few strength points, enough to maybe hold it against at least part of the Mosul force, but if the whole Mosul army starts moving down there, I've got problems. I gotta take Damascus, though. Damascus is the most important thing other than Jerusalem for me. As you can see, most of the cities are 3 and 2 pointers here. Damascus is 10, Jerusalem's 25. You gotta have an important city. I'm going to be in real trouble, though, if Tancred takes Jerusalem. Everybody is. basically that's going to be the catalyst to kind of enforce all right, we have to do something about Bohum and his side of things, and that in order to actually do something about him, that may involve having to ally with forces of the Muslims. All right, time to collect income. Events here in July 1. Had an Armenian revolt against the Moslems. They lost all their Armenian allies. They ran off, grabbing empty cities nearby. It doesn't really hurt the Moslems too much, but it does strip the troops off them that they've been paying for or paid for. Elsewhere, there was a plague in Haifa. It kind of highlights the danger of trying to defend cities. You get this additional double strength siege attrition thing. It was just a pain in the ass for the Egyptians. Their forces are getting reduced more and more. Of course, this is actually really bad for the Christians. You can see, I think that's how Latakia ended up empty, is if you garrison with one strength point, it's dead when the plague happens. And that's hit the Muslims more than the Christians, even though the Normans are really spread out here. The danger, of course, is if you don't garrison your cities, someone can just walk in and grab them back from you without a lot of effort. They can just basically step in, step out. It costs an extra little bit of movement, but it's not like a siege where you get a chance to try to react. Some more money showing up here in Famagusta. None of that Byzantine. The Byzantines are out. And I think that's about it for interesting stuff. On to the move. Yeah, I knew I forgot something. Bohemond made an attempt to kill, I think, Hassan here. Fairly good chance of that against the guile of 1. If failed, Bohemond lost his extra guile. He's back down to 6 where he starts, which is as good as you really need to be. Not a whole lot going on. The Duke of Normandy sieging Haifa. The Egyptians slip away in a boat again. Oh, I haven't taken the siege, and I have to roll this. This is the big one. This is Jerusalem. They're going for it. Over here, this was the big event that I thought was going to take place, which is Raymond facing Dukak coming out in Ridwan. Well, the battle for whether or not Raymond gets to survive, basically. He's outnumbered. But by the picks, we ended up getting the Crusaders taking a defend-in-place option, and the Muslims taking an orderly withdrawal. That ends up in no combat off the chart here. Orderly withdrawal versus defend in place, no combat. Which means they're just there for another turn, which nobody retreats or anything. They're just present and kind of scoping each other out. Let's take a look at this siege. So the first question is who's in command? And I don't think Tancred or Eustace has an advantage in their no, neither one has an advantage in terms of additional points. So Tancred initially has a 2-point advantage, and we'll give him the red die for his guile, though. So Tancred's going to be in charge, which means if he had any guile, he would probably use it here to ensure this victory. But without the guile, it's kind of not very valuable. So we've got an attack against 4 strength points. We've got a total of 10 plus, let me see. I don't know what Eustace has with him anymore. I lost my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we've got a total strength of 19 against 1 times 4 is 4. We have at least 3 to 1. We did full sieges here. So we're going to be able to roll on the chart. What do we have? We actually have, sounds like 6 to 1. So we got a pretty good chance there. We get a success. Syrians are captured. The True Cross is captured. But here's the thing. Tancred's the one who is first into Jerusalem because he's the leader. He's the one who gets to grab it. And that's the one reason you might not have wanted to be there as Eustace. You might not have wanted to be involved in this because your chance of getting anything is very low. But you know, low is better than nothing. And if he could get in there, it's probably his only chance. As it stands, though, Jerusalem's fallen to Tancred along with the True Cross. I gotta look up what that thing does. whether or not it has a combat ability or just a victory point ability. Yeah, I think it's only worth a point of guile and 5 victory points. I looked through the rules for any other indications about it, but I couldn't find anything. Anyway, that's a pretty big success for Tancred. That's going to change the world a little bit. Everybody's going to be much more worried about the Sicilians at this point than they are about anyone else. Could create some strange bedfellows here with, say, the Normans trying to work with the Egyptians to maybe get Jerusalem to be captured and let the Egyptians have it. Maybe in exchange for the True Cross. Who knows? Because Jerusalem is valuable to either side. Alternatively, there's the possibility of attacking Bohemond's territories here. Maybe Raymond can convince the Mosels to attack that. Basically, it's hey, if you're close to somebody and you've been fighting them, they're the person who you want to try to come to some deal with. The problem with any of these deals is there's a lot of game left. We're running through until December here, and then we're still going. Jeez. I think most of the next year, if I can find this scenario. July 2nd, 1099. So we've got another full year, and then basically before this scenario ends. And it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Muslims to say, yeah, we'll help you out right now. It might make more sense for them to kind of say, well, stop attacking me, and we'll consider this as we get to next year. But right now, you're not making us an offer that we can really trust. Even a shared attack, although that has some value for the Muslims, still, they might favor leaving the situation as it is. And the Crusaders can't attack each other. They can snipe territory. So something like Latakia right now is under Sicilian control. The Normans could take that. They could take Tarsus. Somebody could take Tarsus fairly easily. Famagusta could be taken fairly easily. But the combination of Antioch and Jerusalem is enough to win the game. That much I can guarantee you. That's about as good as it can get. So as long as the Sicilians stay in those locations, I don't see much chance without Muslim help. Well, Raymond as a major force has been destroyed. He's down. He made an impetuous charge against Duquesne trying an orderly withdrawal. This is, I guess the classic feint maneuver, except it wasn't. Do they have that here? They have the encircle and flank. They don't have the feint that Saladin managed to pull off so effectively, and Hannibal too, for that matter. But getting back here, anyway, he did an orderly withdrawal. That ends up being a 0 on the table. Unfortunately, Raymond was charged with attacking, and he's been disrupted. He lost 9 strength points. He could have survived that, but on top of that, his casualty rolls meant that he lost Adhemar, who's his good bishop who can dispute things, and Francis Lambert Montiel, who knows. Anyway, he's got a bunch of troops with him that have all defected, have gone home now. So the total strength for those southern Normans is not what I've been writing down here. This might be right. It's 25 now. He was at like 42, and I don't know what this is. This should be like 39, I think. I don't know. Anyway, Raymond, as a powerful force among the Crusaders, is gone. He's down in the ranks of, well, really not far below Bohemond, maybe a little above Bohemond. But there's really only one big Crusader army left in the Normans' hands. What he's got left is going to have trouble against either the Mosels or the Syrians at this point. And he's stuck between the two biggest of the Muslim forces that he could be stuck between. I got to grab the incomes, but other than that, that's it for this turn. I don't think I talked about where people went. See the spreading out of Eustace's Germans, and we're sort of in a stasis here. The Normans have bought the Egyptian claim. Like, let this go far enough and we'll take out Jerusalem, but we want to make sure we get to keep it when we take it, so we're going to do it late next year. And the Normans are okay with that. Mainly they're going to worry about trying to defend their own territory against the Mosles, but they're happy with what they have if Jerusalem's not in Christian hands. Obviously Bohemond would like to see Jerusalem stay his. And here's the tricky part. We've got the Germans who are kind of kicking around, hoping not to come in last, maybe, I don't know, or not to have the rest of their forces leave the Holy Land entirely. It's going to be tough, though. The Syrians may get themselves involved in this. If they end up in a situation where Raymond is defeated and there's a Mosul power here, then the Syrians have to kind of garrison some things to prevent the Mosuls from attacking without, say, Norman help or something. And then all they have left is the move against Jerusalem. So they may do it themselves without any prompting. Still stasis down here on the southern border between the Fatimids and the Normans. And over here in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, well, in Jerusalem itself, it's not a kingdom yet, right? Tancred will be king of Jerusalem. No? I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I think Bohemond might feel a little cheated by that. I don't know. He didn't go forward. So, first thing is, over in the events, the poor Fatimids got taxed another 25% of all their money. Now, luckily for them, they have just tons of money kicking around still. They're in Caesarea with 200 there, and they got, I think, another 100 down here or so, maybe much less in Jaffa. So it's not really killing them, right? And they're not doing anything and collecting more money. But if they get defeated, Cairo's not going to have any value for them. Okay. And in fact, somebody could go take Egypt from them. They have no troops whatsoever, just a leader down in Cairo. But nobody's terribly worried about them. Maybe somebody should be if they do get Jerusalem, but that's why they want to do it late in the game. Make sure nobody's counting points, right? Or something like that. I don't know. All right. The Syrians and the Syrians did this forced march, hellish through the desert here, and the Mosles went here. The Syrians did it because they have the higher guile and a good chance of getting the city. Unfortunately, both forces had descent, which means if they had faced a field army there, they would have both had to run away. In fact, the defender can force them to. He knows they have descent. So that's exactly what he's going to do. Good enough. Because the defender has that block ability. He can come out and say, you want to fight? And since they both have descent, they both run away. Poor Raymond was hoping to slip into Homs. He doesn't think he can do that. He also, along with the Germans, sent his boat over to Famagusta. Unfortunately, so did the Normans. They sent Drogo out there, one strength point, grabbed Famagusta from the Sicilians. That takes some points away from the Sicilians, which is a big deal given what they hold. But he also seized the 100 Byzants that were sitting there, which is kind of pissed off the Germans and the southern Normans. But, you know, the Germans ain't going to do anything. And the southern Normans look like they're getting eliminated too. So, hey, I can use the money better than you guys can. He could, of course, rescind some of that money back to them, but why bother? Anyway, after we collect taxation, that's why the Germans are spread out like this, is to hold more territory, get more victory points, collect taxation. But it makes them very vulnerable to a Fatimid attack. After we do that, we push into the end of the turn. I also left out the Normans pushed into Latakia here, which is stripping more territory out of Bohemond's reach. Now, he can't do anything about it because there's Christian troops there, except he could try to march around or get around and take Tortosa. But honestly, the Normans could actually spread out and cover all of these and make it so that they're all secure. Obviously, they're not interested in Haifa or St. Simeon particularly, except for maybe a tactical reason. And there's other free areas back here. Do the Christians want to spread out across all of them? It's a danger if they do. Somebody could buy the Armenians and go wipe them out without even really risking their position much. Now, what else do we have here? There was something. Oh, yeah, poor Raymond's situation. You know, if he falls into Homs, he's going to be defeated. But he doesn't have anywhere else to go, really. I mean, the real question is, can he just pull out of there and leave it to the two of them? Because his chances of holding it are just about nothing. They will siege him. They will eventually get it. And why risk his own existence? Why not run out and maybe take Tortosa or something and make that his own? At least he's safe there. It's not something he wants, but like Eustace down here, you know, settle for something, even if it doesn't give you victory points now, because although Eustace is getting points from those conceivably, he has those plotted. Unfortunately, Raymond only has Mosul and Syrian territory plotted, and that he's lost there. He really has. And what he has to do is hope that they somehow get hurt some other way. All right, that's the end of this. It was the Syrians hit with the tax. Less money from them, but they could afford it a little less. They're still okay for money, though. They have a significant amount left at Damascus as well as here at Homs. Dukat got Homs. Basically, he was almost assured it. He has a 5 guile right now, 3 on his counter, but he's been successful a couple of times. So he's got a better guile. And you don't lose guile from losing battles, if I have been playing it correctly. I mean, that's how I've been playing it that way. You lose if you attempt to fail. Oh, I didn't charge whoever screwed the Byzantines up. But you lose whenever you fail to take a city by treachery or a number of other things. But for the most part, guile is pretty easily gained. And if you're a good commander, and Dukak is, he's picked some up by his actions throughout the game, being the best commander for his side. Hassan, on the other hand, has not been the best commander on the Mosul side. He isn't as good as any other now. We have a number of these second-rank 2 military leadership leaders, and they're all about equal. But that means that the Mosuls do not get Homs. They can't take it without Crusader help. Whether or not some sort of deal could be come to involving Jerusalem seems unlikely. So, for example, the only person really capable of helping them here would be maybe the Normans with their powerful force. Anyway, a little dance happened here where the Normans slid their troops up to Tortosa, but at the same time, Raymond and Roger, coming from here, both tried to grab Tortosa. They both failed, and, well, it looks like the Normans have a pretty powerful hold along the coastline, and they're happy with everything except for Tancred in Jerusalem and or Bohemond in Antioch. Now, it's quite possible the Mosuls will try to take Bohemond out of here. Nobody's going to help him. And as I said before, it's quite possible the Syrians might go try to take Jerusalem, and nobody's going to help Tancred. So, that might open things up for Normandy to be able to go in there. But at the very least, Raymond got his ass out of the way, and it's time to do lots and lots of bookkeeping, filling out all these numbers. And the September turn's a kind of odd one here. The Mosuls and Syrians came to an agreement of sorts. Let's destroy the Crusader power. Let's take away their victory points. Let's wipe them out as much as we can. This is probably good for the Syrians more than the Mosuls, but what the Syrians are doing is holding out the offer of, you know what, if we can do this, one, we're going to get better placement in the game. If we can knock the Normans out because they're doing quite well. And if we can take Bohemond out of Antioch and maybe even Jerusalem, let's work on this, okay? And what the Syrians can do is they can hold up the offer of, say, Homs, which Mosul is very interested in. And, of course, not trying to mess with them. But the only way that the Mosuls are going to get more territory here is either if the Crusaders attack it, which seems unlikely, or if the Syrians actively grant the Mosul Turks more territory. This may be a deal with the devil in the sense of, hey, you're guaranteeing yourself maybe second place this way. But, sometimes that's the best you can do in a game, is make yourself a buddy, try to get some kind of concessions off of them. Because, here's the thing, the Syrians get points off anything. The Mosuls only get points, like the Crusaders, off the things they picked. And they have everything except Damascus and Homs. Those are the two that they need. That's all that they can gain right now. But they only can have 6 cities. And essentially, this is maybe the best they can do, except by promoting chaos. Leaving Bohemond down here in Jerusalem may not be that bad. How many points do I get? 20, 37. But here's the problem. That 15 for Damascus. I need that. I need to make sure I get that. But with the Syrians heading this way, that's going to put them in a fight with the Normans. Maybe I can take some points from the Normans and then watch the Syrians lose Damascus. Get wiped off the map. Who knows? I have to leave these things open. Another thing would be to let Raymond out. Unfortunately, I didn't know where he's going, but Raymond ends up going into Tripoli here and Tortosa, the 2 locations that we're undertaking a siege. Now, if I capture some of Raymond's troops, I could let them out. The Syrians are unlikely to do that. They have no particular desire to use Raymond. But the Mosuls are in a weird situation where they probably need to bring the Syrians down. Anyway, that's where we are. We had some additional troops the Fatimids brought in Cairo, but they took a plague in Caesarea, and they're beginning to look pretty damn weak over on the coast here. The Normans don't particularly want to go any further. They've taken everything they want. The only thing they want left is Nablus and Jerusalem, the route to Jerusalem from their path. That's all they're really interested in picking up, but they're going to have to defend this. And, that's some of their points are up there. Their points aren't that good if they don't have Jerusalem, though. If you look at what they have outside of Jerusalem, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, significantly less. So Bohemond is the big problem for the Normans, just as he is for Geoffrey, just as he is for Raymond, essentially, although Raymond and Geoffrey are pretty hosed. So it really comes down to the Normans versus the Sicilians, or the Northern Normans versus the Sicilian Normans, as to the only chances the Crusaders have here. Right now, the Sicilians have enough points to probably win the game, but if the Muslims can kind of coordinate their attacks, and they may be able to because they've got more force now. Alright, I'm going to send this one up, and then, I've got some bookkeeping to do first that I don't have to come back for. Yeah. Otherwise, we're pretty close to the end of the year. It's kind of funny. This game's very hard initially for me to get into. The writing the orders and everything for so many powers. But once I get into the flow, it's like diplomacy, or like, what was it? Le Foi Le Glaive. Very diplomacy-like game. It just gets more comfortable, sort of. And, we'll see how the 2-player one works as well.